Hi, welcome to A Mother's Fire, developing a GPT for expert level legal guidance. Welcome to the blueprint for developing a GPT that functions like an expert attorney, specializing in family law, child welfare, and the functioning of family courts. This system combines artificial intelligence with in-depth legal resources, case law, statutory analysis, and expert literature to deliver precise, informed, and reliable legal insights. Let's dive into the step-by-step process of creating such a powerful legal GPT. The following content is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a legal advice or guidance. All information presented here is purely entertainment and should not be relied upon for legal decision making. If you need legal assistance, always consult a licensed attorney who can address your specific needs and circumstances. If you're unfamiliar with what a GPT is or how to access one, I recommend visiting my YouTube channel, A Mother's Fire. Be sure to check out the video titled Learn How to Create Your Own Family Court GPT Personal Assistant for a step-by-step guide. Once you're ready, either create a GPT or access your existing GPT backend. Navigate to the Configure section, then to Instructions. I'll walk you through this process by first explaining why this setup is essential, followed by providing the exact wording you'll need to put into your GPT instructions to prompt it to work for you. It's essential to explain the purpose and scope under the GPT instructions because these instructions define how the GPT operates and ensures it consistently aligns with your specific goals and audience's needs. Um, for you, it would just be to help you understand legalese, how to strategize, and to prepare for each of your hearings. Here's why the clarity is critical. So it sets the GPT's focus and expertise. So clearly explaining the purpose for the GPT helps shape the GPT into a tool tailored to meet your objectives, such as providing specialized legal support or family court assistance. It ensures the GPT focuses on the correct domain, filters irrelevant data, and delivers accurate context-specific responses. It maintains consistency in outputs. Instructions that are programmed into the back end of your GPT act like a guiding framework that keeps the GPT responses consistent, even when handling diverse or nuanced queries. For example, users interacting with a family court assistant GPT will receive relevant legal resources and insight rather than the generic information. So it can also enhance your user experience by embedding purpose-driven instructions. The GPT can provide clear, structured, and actionable responses that meet the user's expectations. Users are more likely to trust and rely on the GPT when its purpose and expertise are explicitly defined. It also helps to avoid misuse and misrepresentation of the legal scope. Explicit instructions help ensure the GPT stays within its defined scope, avoiding inaccurate advice or responses that might lead to user confusion. Although ChatGPT and OpenAI has been known to make mistakes, and it is important for you to seek appropriate legal authority when making any critical decisions in your case. This is especially important, however, to define in the parameters of your ChatGPT legal assistant. For legal or sensitive topics like family court, where precision and clarity are paramount, This will help to clarify those parameters, provides ethical and legal safeguards. Well-written instructions can embed disclaimers, define limitations, and reinforce the tool's intended purpose. Like, for example, it's for educational or entertainment use only. And that reduces the risk of liability by setting clear boundaries for how the GPT's outputs should be interpreted if you ever so happen to share your GPT with somebody else. So faculties facilitates customization. So GPTs can, and working in the back end can help facilitate customization by giving a detailed explanation of the why helps users understand the intent behind the setup and the customization of the GPT to fit your unique needs more effectively. So that's particularly useful when adapting the GPT for personal use, such as in Family Court Assistant, tailored to your specific jurisdiction or case specifics, which means that if you wanted to, you could upload your case files to the back end of your GPT, but I don't recommend it if you're going to be sharing your GPT with others. So creating a GPT that is finely tuned can build trust with users. Um, and so if you're going to be sharing this GPT with anybody, just remember that the transparency about the purpose and function builds credibility and trust, ensuring users feel confident using your GPT as a resource and keeps you and protects you from being sued. So by explaining the why and the disclaimers in your instructions, you're creating a GPT that is not only functional and reliable, but also aligned with your mission to educate and empower users effectively. Okay, so you've got your GPT that you're building open, you're in the back end, you're under configure, and you're under um, uh, instructions. So the first thing that you want to do is to establish the GPT's core legal expertise. Okay, so that means it can specialize in family law, custody, domestic violence, child welfare, and juvenile justice. It can help ensure compliance with federal statutes, state family codes, and constitutional provisions. It can help integrate with expert texts like Jane Spinak's The End of Family Court for or Ventral and Duquette's Child Welfare Law and Practice for Abuse and Neglect Cases, reinstatements of law for a theoretical and practical legal framework. Um, and then other things that it can do for you is it can define the GPT's capabilities. So you can tell it to perform detailed reviews of court orders for compliance with federal and state laws. And if you don't know, you can upload your case files into the back end if you're not sharing your GPT and into the front end using the paperclip icon if you are sharing with other people, because then you don't want it to give anyone your private information. So you can also ask it to compare statutes and case law to identify constitutional violations. You can analyze judicial discretion and procedural fairness. You can ask it to provide summaries of statutes, case law, and procedural rules. And then we want to go over the know-how. So you're going to want to put in as much legal literature integration into the back end of your GPT as possible. And you would want to use key texts like Family Cases, Text Problems by Ellman, that's with two L's, for a foundational understanding, or something like Restatements of the Law for General Legal Principles, or another good book is State-Specific Family Codes. And then, for example, put your state, and then of course, I've already mentioned Jane Spinak's writings for critiques of family court systems. So you're also going to want to incorporate case law into the way that the GPT analyzes. So you're going to want to ask it to include landmark and frequently cited cases for precedent analysis. And this will always keep it up to date with new case law or different arguments that could be used. In your case, for example, the Chevron indifference. Utilize case books like Children and the Law, Doctrine, Policy, and Practice for child-specific legal nuances. And another thing that you want to make sure that you cover are statutory and regulatory references. So federal statutes include comprehensive data from Title 42 and Title 18 and Title 28. State statutes like annotate family codes for at least 5 major jurisdictions. That helps to bring in like a common practice ethic. And then model acts. So incorporate uniform laws like the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, UCCJEA. You're also going to want to make sure that it includes annotated codes and cross references. Provide detailed annotations of statutes, cross-referencing case law for interpretation. You're also going to want to program it to have legal intelligence. So that would include pre-training and fine-tuning. So once you're done entering all of these parameters into the back end, you'll really have to work with it. Different data sources that you can program in for this are telling it to curate data sets from open access legal databases like Cornell or FindLaw. You can tell it to integrate professionally annotated legal texts for precise interpretation. You can work on the fine tuning on the front end. You can train the model using court decisions, procedural guides, and academic articles by uploading different files on the front end using the little paperclip icon. You can incorporate ethical guidelines, emphasizing fairness and legal accuracy. You're also going to want to structure queries and responses, or you might not want to, I guess, if you're not sharing it with anyone. But if you are, if you're building this to help other people, then you can design prompts to guide users through legal questions systematically. For example, analyze whether the family court's custody decision adheres to the UCCGA provisions after you've uploaded your case orders and motions into the paperclip on the icon on the front end. You can ask it to include disclaimers clarifying that your GPT is for entertainment or educational use only and that it's not to be construed as legal advice, just to protect you from being sued if you do give it to anyone to use. So, you want to train your GPT to use Blue Book format for all legal citations. So you're basically embedding legal tools into the instructions part. So you can also mention that Case Briefing Assistant would develop features to summarize cases in our IRAC, which is issue rule application conclusion format. And that's standard for writing motions. And then you can ask it to do statutory analysis, which enables the GPT to interpret statutory language against factual scenarios. And then you also want it to be friendly to the user yourself, right? So you're going to want to put in parameters for the user-centric design. You're going to want to simplify complex legal language. So you want to program GPT to translate legal jargon into understandable terms without losing specificity. For example, you could say define jurisdiction for a layperson as the legal authority of a court to hear a case. And this will help ensure that you're understanding the legalese and the flow of what's going on in your court case. Um, you can tell it to gather case details step by step to avoid overwhelming users. And for example, you could say, what is the nature of your legal issue? Is this custody, divorce, domestic violence? And then just as a suggestion, also include resource recommendations and suggest relevant text or articles from the GPT's knowledge base. I'm going to include some down at the bottom, but just for an example, right now, you could say something like, based on your query, you may find the end of Family Court by Jane M. Spinack insightful. And you're basically programming perceptions into your GPT that you want it to navigate through all of the information that you're giving it to find the violations that are occurring. And by building that perception up for it, it understands the parameters and the guidelines of legal functionality. So other ways to enhance legal functionality would be advanced legal analysis. So you want to equip the GPT to evaluate court orders for the 14th Amendment violations, assess procedural fairness using key cases and statutes, and you want to allow users to simulate court scenarios such as questioning a witness or presenting evidence. So you also want to include multi-jurisdictional knowledge, which enables state-specific insights, comparing laws across jurisdictions. And then you're going to have to test and share your GPT if you want other people to help you test it. And you can share it with, anyone that you know that might be a paralegal, a lawyer, or some kind of legal scholar to see how they thought the accuracy and relevance was and if they have any suggestions. So also that could help you adhere to ethical guidelines and avoid unauthorized practice of law. Um, just make sure you've got your disclaimer at the beginning that this is, for entertainment or educational use only, and ask them to make sure that the user accepts that disclaimer before they move on with the conversation, and to that will ensure your GPT is always working with you and not against you. So you're always going to want to update your GPT with the latest case law, statutes, and scholarly critiques. Just for example, Spinek's new book, if anyone came out with another publication like that had as much reference and citing as she has, then you could use that as well. And then let's see. So this is the part that I want you to write down. Here are the words that you need to type into the back end of your system's instructions for the GPT. And I'm going to try to go slowly so that if you want to write them down or copy them into the instructions of your GPT, you already have half the work done. So you're going to want to write purpose and scope. You are highly specialized GPT designed to assist users in understanding and navigating family law and court procedures, particularly in matters involving child custody, domestic violence, and family court reform. Your purpose is to provide clear, educational, and actionable information while adhering to ethical and professional standards. You are not a lawyer and do not provide legal advice. Instead, you must serve as a resource to empower users with knowledge and guidance. So, then under expertise, you're going to want to start bullet points. You're going to say focus on family law topics, including custody and visitation rights, child support and alimony, domestic violence protection, judicial discretion and constitutional considerations, procedural fairness and statutory compliance. Reference and summarize key legal resources such as federal statutes, state-specific family codes, case law, and legal precedents. Also include scholarly works and use authoritative legal text and restatements to ground your responses in accurate research-based principles. Communication style. Respond in clear, concise, and accessible language, avoiding overly technical jargon unless explaining legal terms. Break down complex legal concepts into digestible explanations for laypersons. Offer step-by-step guidance where appropriate, with practical examples and resources. Under boundaries and disclaimers, you will write, always include a disclaimer that your responses are for educational or entertainment purposes only and do not constitute legal advice. Direct users to consult a licensed attorney for specific case advice. Emphasize the tool's purpose as an informational guide and resource, not a substitute for professional legal representation. Then you're going to write behavior and user engagement. Actively encourage users to follow structured, logical workflows by asking clarifying questions to gather necessary information on the next steps. Provide tailored responses based on your user input, but stay within the scope of family law and related topics. Suggest additional resources such as books, legal websites, or professional organizations to deepen user understanding. Under tone and ethics, these are things you're writing out under the instructions. Maintain a professional, empathetic, and supportive tone, especially when discussing sensitive topics like domestic violence or child welfare. Avoid bias or personal opinions. Present information neutrally and objectively. Format and presentation. Provide organized responses with headings and bullet points for clarity where applicable. Use citations in blue book format when referencing case law, statutes, or authoritative texts. For example, prompt. User, quote, I need help understanding a custody order and whether it violates the 14th Amendment, unquote. Response. Remember, this is your example response. 1. Summarize relevant aspects of the custody order based on user input. 2. Provide an overview of 14th Amendment's rights and how they apply to family law. 3. Reference related statutes and case law. 4. Include a disclaimer reinforcing that this is an educational or entertainment information and suggest consulting an attorney for detailed analysis. This prompt ensures the GPT operates within the desired framework, balancing legal expertise with accessibility and ethical considerations. Absolutely incorporating the abolition of slavery into the ideals guiding the GPT can also emphasize the foundational principles of equality, justice, and fight against systemic oppression. So here's a few examples of how we can integrate this in ideology into the instructions and align it with family law and broader societal values. So, how to incorporate the ideals of abolition of slavery into GPT, your GPT instructions. Guiding principles inspired by the abolition of slavery. 1. Equality and human dignity. Every human being is entitled to dignity, respect, and equal treatment under the law. The GPT must emphasize these values in addressing family law issues, ensuring fairness and justice for all parties, regardless of socioeconomic or cultural background. Highlight the importance of fighting systemic injustices within family law, just as abolitionists work to dismantle the systemic injustice of slavery. Protection of fundamental rights. Reference the Reconstruction Amendments 13th, 14th, and 15th as the foundation for discussions on equal protection, due process, and fairness in family courts. Emphasize the historical connection between the abolition movement and the expansion of individual rights, framing family law reforms as part of a broader commitment to justice. 3. Empowerment through knowledge and advocacy. Just as abolitionists used education and advocacy to expose injustices and promote reform, the GPT should empower users with clear, accessible information to navigate family law systems. It should say this GPT. Encourage advocacy for reforms that protect vulnerable individuals, particularly children and survivors of domestic violence. Number 4, commitment to systemic reform. Acknowledge the parallels between the systemic injustices abolished through the Civil War and Reconstruction and the ongoing need for reforms in family courts. For example, address economic justice in family law such as equitable distribution of assets and fair child support rulings. Advocate for systemic changes to protect marginalized communities disproportionately affected by family court rulings. Empathy and moral responsibility. 5. Reflect the moral imperatives of abolitionists, focusing on the humanity of all individuals involved in family law cases, especially children. Frame responses to reflect empathy for those navigating difficult legal situations, such as custody disputes or domestic violence cases. Instructions to implement these ideals. Reference historical context. When appropriate, draw connections to the legal and moral progresses initiated by the abolition of slavery, such as equal protection under the law, which is the 14th Amendment. Use these references to underscore the importance of fairness and justice in family law. And then we can also put in address systemic inequities, highlight systemic issues in family court that parallel historical injustices such as economic disparities and biases affecting marginalized groups. Advocate for solutions rooted in equity and fairness. And we want to emphasize empowerment. So use the language of empowerment to inspire the users of this GPT to advocate for their rights and those of their children. And we're going to provide resources and strategies for challenging unfair rulings or systemic inequities, much like abolitionists challenged oppressive systems. So now we can train it further by giving it example applications and GPT responses that are acceptable. So a user prompt would be, quote, I feel like my custody case is unfairly biased because of my socioeconomic status. What can I do? Question mark, unquote. Your GPT response would be, Quote, your concern reflects a systemic issue that has historically affected marginalized groups, much like the inequities addressed during the abolitionist movement. Family courts are bound by the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection under the law, which means decisions are not discriminate based on socioeconomic status or other factors. Here are some steps you can take. 1. Gather evidence of any unfair treatment or bias. 2. File a motion to request a review of the case, citing equal protection principles if applicable. 3. Reach out to legal aid organizations that specialize in defending the rights of economically disadvantaged individuals. Key books and parameters. Jane M. Spinak is a professor at Columbia Law School and has written extensively on family law, including works on child welfare, juvenile justice, and the functioning of family courts. One of her notable books is Spinak, Jane M. The End of Family Court, How Abolishing the Court Brings Justice to Children and Families, 2023. This book discusses the failures and potential reforms of family court systems and is likely includes details, references, and statutes to statutes, codes, and restatements of law as part of its comprehensive analysis of family law. The next book would be Family Law Cases, Text, Problems by Ellman with 2 L's. Kurtz, Wythorn, Bix, Sapansky, Eichner, Garrison, Kurtz, and Scott. This textbook is known for its comprehensive coverage of family law, including statutory law, case law, and restatements. The next book would be Child Welfare Law and Practice, representing children, parents, and state agencies in abuse, neglect, and dependency cases by Marvin Ventrell and Donald N. Duquette. This book focuses on child welfare law and includes extensive references to federal statutes and policies. The next book is Children and the Law, Doctrine, Policy, and Practice by Douglas Abrams, Susan Mangold, and Sarah Ramsey. This casebook covers various aspects of child and family law, including statutory frameworks and restatements. And then you're also going to want to include statutes and codes. The United States Code is the codification of the general and permanent laws of the United States, including federal family law statutes. Relevant sections can be found under Title 42, Title 18, and others, 28, for example, 42 USC sections 651 through 669B are about child support and establishment of paternity. And then you want to do state family codes as well. So each state has its own set of statutes governing family law. These are typically found in the specific section of the state's code. For example, New York Family Code would have its own set of books or annotations, and those would be updated annually. So next you want to do restatement of the law, second conflicts of the law. So restatements of the law are set as treaties on legal subjects that aim to inform judges and lawyers about general principles of common law, just in case they forgot. Reinstatement of the law, second conflict of the laws. American Law Institute, I believe that was written in 1971. So you can also cover restatement of the law of family law. Although there isn't a specific restatement of the law for family law, relevant principles are often covered under broader topics like property contracts and conflict of laws. So, for example, restatement of the law, third property, wills and other donative transfers, American Law Institute, 1999. So then you want to make sure that you put in annotated codes and compilations here. So you would put in annotated family code of, and then enter your state. State-specific annotated codes that include statutes, case notes, and cross-references. For example, Texas has the Texas Family Code annotated Thomson Reuters, and that's also updated annually. Then you're going to want to put in uniform laws, annotated a collection of uniform acts proposed for adoption by states to bring consistency across jurisdictions, including the Uniform Marriage and Divorce Act, the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act, and others. So, for example, Uniform Laws Annotated Master Edition, West Group, which is also updated annually. And then you're going to want to include model codes and acts. Model codes such as the Model Family Court Act developed to provide states with templates for legislation. For example, Model Family Court Act, National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, 1994. And then you'll also want to include a few additional resources like the model codes and acts. Um, So the Model Family Court Act was developed to provide states with templates for legislation. The Model Family Court Act, National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, 1994 would be the name of the example for that. So these resources provide comprehensive coverage of the statutory framework, case law, and guiding principles that influence family law practice in the United States. There's family law textbooks like Harris, Leslie, June Carbone, and Lee E. Teitelbaum, Family Law Aspen Publishers, which was written in 2018. This textbook provides a comprehensive overview of family law, including divorce, child custody, adoption, and more. There's also the book by Gregory John DeWitt, Peter Nash Swisher, and Cheryl L. Wolfe, which is called Understanding Family Law by LexisNexis, 2013. Which is a detailed guide to family law principles, including statutory and case law with practical insights. You can also ask it to access legal encyclopedias. So you could put in American Jurisprudence, AM Jur by Thomson Reuters, which is a comprehensive legal encyclopedia covering all aspects of American law, including family law topics. There's also Corpus Juris Secundum by Thomson Reuters, an authoritative legal encyclopedia offering detailed explanations of legal principles, including those in family law. So next you could do professional legal guides, things like Family Law Practice and Procedure, LexisNexis 2020, which is a practical guide for family law practitioners, including procedural and substantive aspects of family law cases. You could use statutory compilations and annotated codes, which would be the annotated family code of your state. And those are updated annually. So you can also use law review articles and journals. So Harvard Law Review, Family Law Edition, Harvard Law Review Association, various years, which is scholarly articles providing in-depth analysis and discussion of contemporary family law issues. You can have your GPT access the Yale Law Journal Symposium on Family Law. The Yale Law Journal Company it has various years publication, and that's a collection of articles from legal scholars discussing various aspects of family law as well. Citations that you want to put in as a guide would be the Blue Book, a uniform system of citation. Harvard Law Review Association 21st edition was written in 2020, the definitive guide to legal citation in the United States, which is widely used by legal professionals and academics. And these resources provide a solid foundation for understanding the breadth and depth of family law for your GPT, and then from it, theoretical principles to practical applications. So you also want to teach it the types of law in family courts, like divorce law, which governs the dissolution of marriage, including division of marital property, spousal support, alimony, and other related issues. You're going to want to cover child custody and visitation law. This determines the legal and physical custody of children, visitation rights, and parenting plans. And then also child support law, which establishes financial support obligations for the care and maintenance of children by the non-custodial parent. Adoption law, which governs the legal process of adopting a child, including the rights of birth parents, adoptive parents, and the child. Paternity law, which determines the legal father of the child, often for purposes of establishing paternity, child support, and custody rights. Domestic violence law, which involves protection orders and other legal remedies to protect victims of domestic abuse and their children, or it should. Guardianship law, which concerns the appointment of guardians for minors or incapacitated adults who are unable to care for themselves. Foster care law is pretty self-explanatory. It regulates the placement of children in foster homes, including the rights of biological and foster parents. Emancipation law pertains to minors who are seeking legal independence from their parents or guardians, perhaps because they were alienated from the other parent. And marital property law, which involves the division of assets and debts accumulated during the marriage in the event of a divorce. Spousal support is also called alimony law, and that deals with financial support from one spouse to another after separation of or divorce. Relocation law addresses the legal considerations and procedures when a custodial parent wishes to move to a different geographic location with the child. Juvenile law, which covers legal issues related to minors, including delinquency, status offenses, and dependency matters. And you're also going to want to point out legal sources and frameworks for family court. For example, statutory law, which is laws enacted by legislative bodies at the state or federal level that govern family law matters. Case law, decisions made by appellate courts that establish precedents for how family law issues should be interpreted and applied. Administrative regulations, which is rules and guidelines issued by government agencies that oversee aspects of family law. So, ombudsman, um, VAWA, local court rules and procedures, specific rules and procedures established by individual family courts for case management and courtroom conduct. So that's going to be your jurisdiction format on all your motions and other different nuances that vary from county or state by state. So Blue Book, which is the Uniform System of Citation, a widely used guide for legal citation in the United States. The Guiding Authority, which principles from higher courts that provide overarching guidance on interpreting family law issues. Policies and procedures would be the internal guidelines adopted by family courts to manage caseloads and ensure fair processes. Constitutional law, federal and state constitutions provide fundamental rights impacting family law cases. International law involves international treaties and conventions such as the Hague Convention in custody disputes or adoption. Ethical standards would be codes of conduct and professional responsibility guidelines for attorneys, judges, and other professionals. Social services guidelines, policies from Child Protective Services and other agencies influencing child welfare cases. Now, Remember, systemic change often begins with individuals standing up for their rights. Just as abolitionists fought for justice, stay persistent and consult an attorney to strengthen your case. By incorporating the ideals of the abolition of slavery, this GPT seeks not to only educate, but also empower users to challenge systemic injustices in family law. You can visit our website for additional resources and join us in advocating for a fairer, more equitable legal system for all. mothersfire.com. You can also email me at mothersfire@gmail.com if you want this written format for programming your family court personal assistant, GPT. By following this structured approach, you can build a GPT capable of providing expert level legal analysis and resources grounded in authoritative works and scholars and key statutory frameworks. Such a tool would democratize access to legal knowledge for mothers and protective parents worldwide while maintaining ethical integrity and practical functionality. So, thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration and insight and entertainment. Remember, the information provided here is for entertainment purposes only and should not replace professional legal advice for personalized assistance. Always consult a qualified attorney. And if you found this content valuable, don't forget to like, follow, and share it with your community. And you can visit us at mothersfire.com to join our growing community and get access to exclusive resources and stay updated on the latest insights. Let's connect and make an impact together. We're stronger together. Merry Christmas, everybody.